I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for decades. My name is Walter Finch. I'm 78 years old. For 28 years, I was the head accountant at a family run manufacturing firm. Last week, I got a phone call from Robert Vance, the disgraced former CEO. He's facing federal charges now, and he made me a desperate offer. You see, back when he was running the company, I saw the creative accounting, the inflated numbers. I knew it was wrong, and I kept quiet. I kept a promise to the founder, Arthur Brennan. Now that silence has a price. The ledger I kept wasn't for taxes. It was for my soul. Let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you how it all began. You see, Brennan Manufacturing wasn't just a company. For 43 years, it was a family. Arthur Brennan built it from his garage after the war, making precision machine parts. I started in the mailroom at 22. Arthur knew every employee's name, the kids' names. He'd walk the factory floor every morning, his old tweed jacket smelling of oil and pipe tobacco. If we had a good year, he'd give everyone a turkey at Thanksgiving and a bonus at Christmas. Not a huge one, but it was a thank you. It meant something. When I became head accountant, Arthur called me into his office. It was a small room, cluttered with blueprints and ledgers. He didn't have a computer. He looked at me and said, "Walter, the books are the soul of this place. You keep them honest, you keep us honest." I promised him I would, and for 18 years I did. Then, in 1992, Arthur's health failed. His children didn't want the business. The board brought in Robert Vance. He was 42 years old, sharp, with a smile that didn't always reach his eyes. He called us all into the main hall. He talked about modernization, unlocking shareholder value, preparing for a strategic sale. He said the word legacy a lot. I remember the coffee in the styrofoam cup was getting cold in my hand. His changes started fast. The Thanksgiving turkeys were deemed a non-essential expense. The annual picnic was canceled. Then, the first quarter under his leadership closed, and the numbers weren't where he'd projected. He called me into his new corner office, all glass and chrome. He leaned back in his chair and said, "Walter, we need to be creative. We need to tell a growth story." And here's the part that haunts me. He laid out the plan. It was simple and so clever. We would change how we accounted for long-term contracts. Instead of recognizing revenue over the life of the contract, we'd book most of it up front. It made the current quarter look spectacular. We would reclassify routine maintenance as capital investments, which spread the cost out over years instead of hitting the profit and loss statement now. We created something called a special purpose entity, a separate company on paper, to hold some of our debt so it looked like we owed less than we did. I told him it wasn't just aggressive accounting, it was wrong. The numbers wouldn't reflect the true health of the company. He just smiled that thin smile and said, "Walter, the true health is what the market believes it to be." My job was to make them believe. He said if I had a problem with it, he could find a new head accountant who understood the vision. I had a mortgage. Clara was teaching, but her salary alone. We had 2 kids in college. I went home that night and told Clara everything. We sat at our kitchen table until 2 a.m. She listened, her hands wrapped around her teacup. Finally, she said, "Walter, you can't do this. But you also can't walk away and let someone else do it worse. You have to be the witness. You document everything, every memo, every spreadsheet. You keep your own ledger. She called it a ledger of the soul. She said, one day the books they're faking and the books you're keeping will have to be reconciled. A week later, Arthur Brennan died. I went to see him in the hospice the day before. He was so thin, just a whisper in the bed. He took my hand. His grip was surprisingly strong. He said, "Walter, promise me you'll look after the soul of the place." I looked into his bright blue eyes, and I promised. I didn't know then that looking after it meant holding its dirty secrets. So I stayed. For 3 more painful years, I did the job. I coded the entries Robert wanted. And in a locked drawer in my office, I kept a separate file. I printed duplicates of every questionable journal entry, every memo from Robert instructing the changes, every email where I expressed my concern. I noted dates, times, amounts. It was a detailed map of the deception. The sale happened in 1995. A large conglomerate bought Brennan Manufacturing for a price that made the front page of the business section. Robert Vance walked away with millions in stock options and a golden parachute. A month after the deal closed, the new owners came in. They said they found redundancies. They shut down 2 of the 3 production lines. They let go of 120 people I'd worked with for decades. I was kept on for 6 months to help with the transition, then offered an early retirement package. I took it. The day I cleaned out my desk, the folder in the locked drawer was the heaviest thing I carried out. For 28 years, that folder lived in a fireproof box in our basement. Clara would ask about it sometimes. I'd say it's just some old work papers. She'd give me a look and say, "That's not just a box of papers, Walter. That's a weight you carry." I'd nod. I couldn't bring myself to destroy it, and I couldn't bring myself to do anything with it. It was just there. Then, 6 months ago, I saw the headline on the Financial News website. Federal investigators had opened a probe into accounting practices at that conglomerate, focusing on acquisitions made in the mid-1990s, specifically Brennan Manufacturing. My heart just stopped. I read that Robert Vance was named as a person of interest. I must have read that article 10 times. Last Tuesday evening, the phone rang. I almost didn't answer it. A number I didn't recognize. It was him, Robert Vance. His voice was the same, but tighter, strained. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. He said, "Walter, you've seen the news." He said the investigators were like bloodhounds, but they were missing a key piece: the contemporaneous documentation from inside the finance department. He said they thought it was lost in the acquisition. Then he made his offer. He said he knew I had kept records. He was sure of it. He said if I were to lose those records permanently, it would be worth a great deal to him. He proposed a consulting agreement, $250,000 a year for 5 years, for my expert historical advice, of course. All I had to do was sign the agreement and confirm the documents no longer existed. The money would be paid through a legal trust, completely above board. He said, "Walter, it's a life-changing amount. It's security. You're not getting any younger." He talked for 10 minutes straight. I didn't say a word. I just listened. I could hear the desperation under the smooth talk, the fear. He was offering me over $1 million for my silence. When he finally paused, I told him I needed to think. He said he needed an answer by the end of the week. Then he hung up. I sat there in the quiet of this room for a long time. The light from the window faded.
I thought about Arthur's hand in mine and his promise. I thought about the 120 people who lost their jobs. I thought about Clara's ledger of the soul. Then I looked over at her picture, right there on the sideboard. She's smiling her calm, knowing smile, the one that always saw right through me. And in that moment, I knew. I knew exactly what to do with the folder. The reconciliation was finally due.
Here's what I've learned. The next morning, I mailed the folder to the Securities and Exchange Commission. I couldn't take the money. You see, a quiet conscience is a form of wealth that compounds over time. When someone asks you to hide the truth, that's the moment to walk away. Integrity isn't a grand gesture. It's the small, quiet choice you make when no one is watching. I believe it still matters. If this story resonated with you, I'd recommend 2 books. First, The Big Short by Michael Lewis. It shows how a few people saw the truth in a world of financial deception. And The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, a powerful exploration of human dignity in the face of greed. You'll find the links in the description below. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves.